These are some of the Dark Age landmarks of Cutsdean in Gloucestershire, in the oldest form of English that we have. Of Jarlawan Forda, on Thrist Longendina. On long Thrist Longendina, to Brockesladda. Of Brockesladda on long Edge, that on that Twayan Thornas. Of them Twan Thornan on Wardberg. I'm back in Cutsdean, the tuna of cod. He probably gave his name to the Cotswolds, and tuna means farm, estate. And I'm on this is the hamlet of Hinchwick, and with a name like Hinchwick, that's Hinkers Wick, which is because it's on a Roman road. See previous video, the video before. We should look at the word wick in a different way. We should perhaps consider it might be vicus, which is a settlement beside something Roman. Or it could just mean wick, which is like an outlying farm, possibly dairy farm. This is probably Thrist Dene in Old English, and G.B. Grundy, the Oxford Don, he translates that as thistling, it being thistle, the Dean of the Thistle. I don't like the missing R. I'm going to have to look at the etymology of thirst, see whether or not it's thirsty Dean. I quite regularly get involved in discussions about what it means to be English, mostly in response to people who seem to think that we are largely Anglo-Saxon. The genetic data is pretty clear that we're pretty much that pretty much is just as much Welsh in your average Englishman as there is Welsh blood, as there is Anglo-Saxon, invader. So any, a notion of Anglo-Saxonness perhaps could be talked about, but not really. You could make the argument for the language and various other bits of Anglo-Saxon culture might have survived. We're just as intent on the primacy of property as the Anglo-Saxons were. But I always come back with arguments about English culture, association football, the National Health Service, free healthcare at the point of use, local government, complaining, plenty of rain and warm beer, the oldest parliament still in existence, that sort of thing, as being a measure of being English. As something, that some of our institutions and customs are you know, it doesn't matter what you look like if those are your customs and your institutions, then English you are. But there are problems with that argument. So one of the problems is, if you stripped away all of those things that I mentioned, democracy, association football, warm beer, if all those things were taken away from me, would I still be English? And the answer is yes. So maybe those things aren't as important as I think they are. So it happened to the Romano British around about 360, 370. Certain things started to happen. They had one, stopped production of ceramics. They stopped using ceramics when even importing it. Hobnail boots started to disappear. Hobnails make your boots last longer. So metal stopped using the manufacture of mass-produced metal. They started to rebuild pagan Romano-British temples in various places in this period. There were rebellions. The British tyrants, they decided to name themselves, one after another, decided to name themselves as emperors, go off to Europe with Britain's armed forces, leaving behind a vacuum. And all of this was a disaster. But even after all those things were stripped away from them, are they still Romano-British? The answer is yes, because they kept Ambrosius Aurelius was said to have been born to the purple. He had a Latin name, a Roman name. There are inscriptions on stones use words like nepos and Latin titles. And it's not just Christianity, these are institutions of statehood, even if that statehood has failed. Here's some landscape things for you, not ancient, but these beautiful beaches, lovely great big beaches, and those beaches there are in a line, and there's the faintest outline of a lynch there, or a bank. So that's a hedge of beech, and I know it's a hedge because it's multiple stems coming up from one stall that have gone way beyond being a stall now, and are in fact, they've probably been cut once and then gone into trees. So that a beech just wants to go straight up into the air, one single branch, trunk. But that would be no good for keeping animals in, leaving it like that, keep it for enclosing animals. That's a hedge, so that what it tells us, this land, and you can see it's new woodland as well. So those pretty much, the big saplings over there, those birches, silver birches and so on. So this was a field, and that was the hedge, and that hedge wasn't grown to keep animals out or in. It was grown for firewood, and it was meant to be cut every 10, 20 years, whatever, for firewood, and then, or for other building wood. And then, but it's just been left to return to woodland, and that might not be planted at all. It might just have been neglected, and which is bittersweet for me, because I like to see land producing food. But I also like to see land producing resources like wood for building. For you, that's another human need. But you might just be seeing nature reasserting herself. But underneath it all, you can see mankind's intervention. The bluebells are going over, which is very, very sad. It's because the canopy has gone over really quickly, and but the bluebells out in the fields, are on the edge of the fields, are looking nice. They're still there. This is meant to be Brockes Slad, which means brook slade, and there is no brook here. I suspect if we do find a brook, however, we'll know that's where the precise location is. But I suspect there's something wrong with the charter, or it's the guy that copied it, or whatever. It has two C's in Brockes, which worries me a little bit. But a slad is a wooded valley. Which is, we certainly have that here. So why am I bringing all this up about collapsing civilization fall? Well, it's one of the main themes of about this channel is showing the Dark Age transition. But it's also, in this particular location, you have over by Donington, you have a salt strat, and over by Winchcombe, a few miles that way, you have a salt strat. Strat is Old English for Roman road. Salt is salt, and they're going up to Droitwich. The one to the right goes a bit of a wobbly way, but that one goes in a direct route. And what is interesting about that, Droitwich has had a salt industry since the Iron Age, right up until about 100 years ago. That would suggest continuity of a really remarkable sort with a commodity. Droitwich, its Roman name was Salinae Dubanorum, something like that. And what we could tell from that is two things: one, Salinae salt, and two, the Duboni, the local tribe. And but it's not quite continuity, because around about 370, an interesting path up there. I love that sort of thing. That promise of what's over the horizon. So there was a break in 370. They stopped producing salt, and then the Anglo-Saxon period comes along, and I don't know exactly when in the Anglo-Saxon period. It could have been right near the end, for all I know. But they start producing salt again. So there is a break. And this is when a market economy collapses. So salt is a commodity. It's not a subsistence product. It is something that you export outside your local estate. And it was in Anglo-Saxon times, it was owned by the king, and apparently it was owned by the Roman state before it. So it is a strategic commodity. So if you think back to what I was saying about taking British steel back into state hands recently, you'll see the importance of it. Strategic commodities need controlling. I'm not necessarily in favour of nationalisation of a lot. Because if you want to see something really incompetent, just let the state do it. And the Saxon Charter now says go on Long Edge, and that's where we'll be going now. That slad had not a hint of a brock that I could see, so maybe it was misnamed.